Hey guys, Jessie here from Urban Legends Antiques, and this week I went out of my comfort zone and I used a different paint. I used Vintage Market paint in the color Duck Egg, and I used a transfer. This is a Prima transfer Blossom Flight, and I went shopping. I got a kimono from Vintage Retail Therapy in Fallbrook, California. So let's get started. So I'm trying out a new paint this week and I want to see how it holds up to bleed through, sanding, spraying water on it. So I'm sanding this table on purpose because I'm trying to get the tannins to come up from the wood on the table, and I want to see how the paint will hold up to bleed through. I'm using 150 grit sandpaper to sand it, and this table is pretty old. The finish is coming off fairly quickly and I'm expecting a lot of bleed through from this wood. I'm using 150 grit sandpaper here too, but it was scratching the table too much. I didn't like the way it looked, so I got rid of that and then just used a sanding block and it's a 220 grit sanding block to sand this part. The table's all sanded and now I'm just brushing off all the little bits of cobweb and stuff I found on the bottom of the table. The table had these really cool metal feet on them that I'm removing because I don't want the paint to get on them. I'm planning on using a copper patina on the feet instead, just to give like a bright pop of color to the table. I did struggle a little bit removing the feet. I didn't want to use a hammer and potentially damage the metal on the feet, so I used vice grips to remove the nails instead. I chose the color Duck Egg from Vintage Market paint, and it's a lovely light blue color. It's really, really pretty. Getting ready to paint, you got to spray that paintbrush with water first. Here we go, first coat going on. Did you guys notice? We started putting the curtains up for our paint wall. So I decided to paint the hinges on the bottom of the table as well as the wood just to see how the paint would react with different materials. I do like the way the paint glides on. It has like a nice smooth glide to it. There's very little drag and it's going on really quickly and it's easy to paint with, which I love. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Urban Legends Antiques, and I also have a website, www.urbanlegendsantiques.com, with items available to ship. So we've moved to the top of the piece now, and again, I want to see how the paint will work on this part. This is like the part that everyone's going to see, so I want to see if there's going to be a lot of brush strokes or not. I want to see if it's going to dry and level or if it's going to have ridges in the paint. Wow, this paint dried really fast, so I'm just giving it a couple of spritzes of water because I was noticing there was like some drag through the paint, and moistening it up will give me a longer paint time. I got both sides of the table done and now I'm doing the middle. I can't reach across, so I'm kind of like laughing at myself. I should have prepared for this better. So I'm going to paint one half of the table and then go around and paint the other half. Okay, I've got the whole top done and I'm just going through now and trying to smooth out the paint really quick before it dries. Okay, we've moved into the kitchen now from the garage. I always paint in both kitchen and garage when I work on my pieces, and this paint says that it's no odor, low VOC, so I want to see if I can smell the paint in the kitchen. And yeah, no odor, paint's going good. I've moved on to Debbie Beard's DIY paint, their copper patina, pennies from heaven, and this is what I'm planning to use on the feet and on the drawer pull. A little jar of this stuff is $33. I bought it from the DIY paint store in Encinitas, California, and I was told it's super pigmented and to use just a tiny little bit. So I have this tiny little paintbrush out and I'm using that to paint it on, and it is really pigmented. It was getting all over my fingers and it took a while to clean it off, but I think it was worth it because it came out so nice. Look at how it's going onto the drawer pull. It's so pretty. I did wait for it to dry and put a second coat on, but I didn't film that. Okay, we've moved back out to the garage. Look at this. This is 2 coats of the Pennies from Heaven copper patina. It's really pretty. I'm putting the feet on the table and I love the contrast between the super shiny copper patina and the matte blue of the table. We're in the home stretch. Now it's time to clear coat. I'm using Varathane clear coat because that's what I had. The Depot's been running out of my favorite clear coat, the Rust-Oleum Matte Clear. I'm spraying the clear coat on and it's going on pretty easy, nice and smooth. No issues so far. There are issues, but at this point, everything's going really, really well. So I have high hopes at this point, and then in a little bit, it's gonna crash and burn. As the clear coat dried, I started to get bleed through really bad. I didn't expect it to happen with the clear coat. I thought it would happen just as the paint dried itself, but the clear coat reacted with the paint. Even though I fully expected bleed through, I did not expect it to happen the way it did. So I was a little frustrated and decided I needed to take a break from the table and take a little road trip and go visit a friend. I went and visited Marla Faye at Vintage Retail Therapy in Fallbrook, California. And it's funny because the whole time I was painting with this paint, I was thinking the name of the paint is Vintage Market Paints and Mara's shop is Vintage Retail Therapy. And I just was thinking about her the whole time and I decided I was gonna go and pay her a little visit and check her shop out. Mara's always talking about her $10,000 wall in her videos, so I wanted to see it for myself.
$10,000 wall. Check it out.
Mara's $10,000 wall. And then here's all the stencils. And there's the shop puppy. Hi, look at you. Hi, Gigi. Hi. I did make some purchases off of that $10,000 wall, as well as a kimono that I will show you later. So I did reach out to the owners of Vintage Market Paint. I contacted them through Instagram and asked them what to do about the bleed through on my table. They recommended using clear coat with some paint mixed in, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to spray shellac over the whole top of the table and then start over and see what happens. So I'm not going to do what they said, obviously. I'm going against their recommendations. So anything that happens, I own it. Now that I put the shellac down to block the bleed through, I'm going to paint the top again in the duck egg. I'm going to give it one more coat and see what happens. So I am a little bit worried. You can see there's quite a bit of bleed through, and with the new coat of paint going on, you can see what a drastic difference it is. But I'm just going to roll with it because that's what I do. It worked perfectly, and now I'm going to put some transfers on. I don't want to cover the whole table in the birds because when the table leaves drop down, it will, to me, I just thought it would look weird. So I'm just kind of piecing out how I want it to look. I'm going to put a little bit on each table leaf and then some in the middle, and hopefully it comes out good. I'm totally winging it at this point. I'm putting my first transfer on, and at the very top of the transfer, there's like a hard cut line. So I'm going to layer transfers on because I want a more soft, organic look to the piece. More transfers. This is on the other side of the drop leaf table because I was thinking when the table leaf is down, each side, if I have it just like one complete piece, the birds would be upside down. So I have birds on each corner that are going to be upright when the table is down, but then when it's up, I had to figure out how to make it all work. Instead of using a paper towel to burnish with, I'm using the transfer paper, and I think I like using the paper towel better. This transfer paper was catching a little bit. Now I'm adding on some more birds here. I'm just layering it in as I can. I'm piecing it together bit by bit. What do you guys think of the way the birds are going onto the table? Do you like the way it looks? Do you think that I'm making a mistake here? This bird, I think it's gonna look upside down, but I'd already put it down. And once you do that, you have to commit and go with it. I'm layering another transfer on top of the first transfer to give it a softer, more organic look. I just thought that the way the branch ended just looked weird, so I'm adding a little bit of flowers to the end. Here's another corner of the table. You can see where the drop leaf table is, and there's a bird there, and then I layered branches up onto the middle section of the table, and I'm adding in more flowers to that part. Now I'm starting to get excited because it's looking really, really good. I'm going to go over the whole table one more time and burnish the entire transfer on each corner of the table before I clear coat it. I'm going right back in with the same Varathane clear coat I used the first time. I want to see if there will be any difference now with the shellac coat in between the layers. I don't know if this was the best idea, because if I would have got bleed through again, I would have been upset, but I've already done it, so here we go. I'm going to use a paint and then recommend it to my customers. I want to know how that paint will work. Like, how does it work on wood? How does it work on metal? How does it work on glass? And then also, what type of clear coats will work with it and how do they react with it? I want to know what kind of waxes work with it. Like, I want to be able to solve problems for my customers instead of them giving up and saying the paint doesn't work. So that's why I'm using the same clear coat I had used originally. It's done and it is beautiful. I love it. My lovely French-inspired table with the bird transfer on it. If you want to know why I chose birds, for the crumbs. My accent's bad. So here's my piece all done. Came out great. Once again, I'm Jessie from Urban Legends Antiques, and thanks for coming along for the ride. Look at this. I love this kimono. I feel like Stevie Nicks. I need some scarves and some witchy poo shoes. Oh my gosh, I'm such a dork.